Okay, then, madam, you can start.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Kokonyanpit Rahul Darkar College of Pharmacy and Research Institute, Kazat, I, Vishali Neve, a warm welcome to all of you in second day of AICTE sponsored online 2-week faculty development program with title Innovation, Startup and Entrepreneurship Development in Pharmaceutical Science. Dear all, we are fortunate with have today's speaker, Ms. Darshana Jain Madam, a partner and CEO Snapper Future Tech. Let me introduce her. She has 25 years experience, technology and real estate. She is the first woman to be elected on executive committee of Confederation of Real Estate Developers Association of India. She is also regional chair of Foundation for International Blockchain and Real Estate Expertise. She contributes in strategy buildings, business developments, sales marketing, company leadership with Fortune 500 companies in US and UK. She also given her strong global edge. She transfer this knowledge to help startup to create sustainable business growth. Now, she is currently a CEO and a partner in Snapper Future at Pune. With this brief introduction, I request to Darshana Madam to start today's session.
Thank you so much, Rishali ma'am. Very kind words. Thank you so much, Dr. Kale, for inviting me. Really, really amazing initiative. Happy to be part of it. And good morning to all of you. I'm going to talk about a little bit of my own experience of this journey of entrepreneurship. We're a technology company, so I'm going to take a little bit of liberty and introduce what I'm doing so that I can relate it to what I'm going to talk to you about. So the subject I have picked up today is entrepreneurship and product market fit. So let's say students or faculty or anybody decides that I want to be an entrepreneur and I want to create a product in technology. Today, in a post-COVID world, technology becomes very important. So how would you go about doing it? We all have a lot of ideas. We are all dreamers, right? And we can think of a lot of things that can be done right, or especially in India, because we're such a nascent country as far as technology is concerned. So much can be done. But really, when you think of an idea, is it worth taking to market? How do you decide that? That product market fit is very important, because that's what decides any amount of money that you put into a business, will that be successful or not? And that's the journey I'm going to walk you through today. So just give me a moment. I'm going to share my presentation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my company, which is Snapper Future Tech. And that's important for me to give you a background, because the products that I'm going to walk you through, the journey of a technology product. So Snapper Future Tech is a blockchain company, and we create blockchain products. Okay. So we do different things. We do consulting, we do development, we do training. And as part of that, how we actually design the products, what are the things that we do, I think dictates the market strategy, the product market fit, right? So when we decided that we want to go ahead and create a product where we can offer to colleges, let's say that we will create a center of excellence for you in blockchain. The question is the college ready for it? Is the college ready for this product to come out into the market, where I can go and talk to a university and tell them, I will give you a blockchain center of excellence? If the college faculty is not ready, right? If faculty development programs have not happened around the technology, will the market be ready to accept this? The answer is no, right? So the first thing I would have to do is maybe do faculty development programs across universities for blockchain, and then have that center of excellence as a product to go and market to a university, right? So I'm just sharing with you our journey, a little bit of some of the things that we've done. But let's talk about the actual product market fit, right? What does it mean? What does a product market fit mean? When we decide that we want to go ahead and create a product, a technology product, and we create a startup, right? we should prioritize product market fit above all other goals, because those that find it dramatically increase their odds of success. If you're unable to find product market fit, many startups, 90% startups fail because they waste their money on products that no one wants to buy. And that is why product market fit is important. What does it mean? It means to find that need of a customer that you are able to satisfy without a doubt and create a business out of it. That is what a product market fit is, that you create a product and you can take it to market and customers are willing to buy it. So how do you create a product? The best way to do this is the domain that you are in, because domain expertise is extremely important when you're creating a product, right? So we're going to talk of certain problems. So we went through a journey recently. We got selected by Ministry of Information and Technology for one of our products. And they actually made us go through a whole journey of product market fit. Now, what does this mean? Let me give you an example of credentials, right? Now, in the new education policy, all colleges are mandated that they need to digitally give degrees, right? Now, this is a policy that has come out. Now, out of this, a need will arise. All colleges will need to get equipped to digitally issue degrees. How long that will take is something that I have to understand. So I've identified a problem, right? That all colleges will need to issue degrees electronically. Now, once I have identified a problem, I would think of a solution, right? That this is, let's say I form a digital platform which will allow universities to come on my platform and issue the degrees. That is a solution. Now, how do I determine that this creates significant customer value? Now, if I want that university to actually come out and use the product, how can I create significant customer value? That is a question. So let's determine which customer needs that you are addressing best with your product. Now, for that one single need, will the university come to the platform? Or do I need to offer multiple other things? Figure out how you can outperform your competitors, which means, are there other products out in the market that are doing this? If yes, what is it that you are giving, right? What is the significant customer value that is going to surprise your customer? And you cannot lose sight of that, right? You cannot lose sight of that. So you first decide what is the significant customer value that your solution will provide. And that is what you have to address. Not every problem will fit into your solution. You don't have to address every single problem that your university has. Like, for example, Spotify has a value proposition. I don't know if everyone knows Spotify. It is a music service. Like you have Apple Music on your phone, you can download Spotify for free and you can listen to music, right? It's a streaming service. Now, their value proposition is very simple. It positions streaming service as offering access over ownership, which means instead of buying the record or buying the CD or buying that music from Apple Music for 99 cents, they are saying, don't buy it from us, just access it. And they give you a personalized service where you can listen to the music for free, but you have to listen to ads in the middle. So their free service is supplemented by ad revenue. But you can also upgrade to a subscriber position where they earn revenue out of subscribership and therefore you don't have to listen to ads. So they have a very clear value proposition they are defining for their customer. And that is a very important part of this product market fit journey, to actually create significant customer value. We need to also determine what meets the customer needs. When you are creating the customer value, what is it that it creates a significant need? What is the pressing need? Are you creating one? Is it meeting customer needs? like I said, let's say the education policy created a need, right? Is it significant and is it immediate? I'm not sure. It will be significant once the government decides that they have to implement it right away in this year. But if they don't and they give 5 years, 10 years for the schools to come on board in the digital world, then the need is not immediate or persistent. Let's take, for example, IKEA. IKEA is a brand of furniture that is, to provide high quality European furniture at a reasonable rate. Now, if you go into the IKEA furniture store, they also have multiple household need items like a peeler, a knife, whatever that you may need in your kitchen, right? Now, IKEA came out with something called an apple corer. Now, what's an apple corer? The middle of the apple, how do you remove? We just cut it and throw it, right? Well, they found that Americans need tools. So they created an apple corer. And with that apple corer, you can stick it in the center of the apple and remove it and throw the apple core. Now, that apparently is a very important need that Americans didn't know that they had. So IKEA, when they created the product, they created the need for that product. It wasn't really a need, but they created the need. Now, every American household or American housewife thinks that without an apple corer, she can't cut an apple. So the way they market it has created the need. Now, the difference between addressing an actual need that's present and creating a need is that when you create a need, you need significant amount of money to go to market for advertisement. But if you're addressing a current need, a pain point, then the customers are happy to buy it from you because you're addressing their current need. They actually want that product. Let's talk about product market fit as to why is it important for people to want that product, because you don't have to sell it. People sell it for you, right? If you like something, don't you tell your friends and family, please go ahead and buy this. This is amazing. Like, download Spotify. It's free. You don't mind listening to the 30-second ad. So people sell it for you. Spotify doesn't advertise. People advertise for Spotify. And therefore, it is important to find the product market fit. Spotify actually went ahead and figured out that Apple charges way too much money to listen to music. People want to listen to music, but they charge too much money. So how do we do that? How do we address that need? When you decide a market fit, the market fit is not just for product. It has to be the right product at the right price, which actually creates a business model for you, which means if your student comes to you with an idea to say, I love this idea and I want to take it to market, I will be spending 1,000 rupees on this, creating this idea, and I can sell it for maybe 1 paisa, right? The business model doesn't fit for him to break even. It may take 5 years, 10 years, or may not, because every time he'll have to spend that much money. So it depends, like your product, pricing, and business model. All three have to fall in line. Competition. When you create an idea for a product, there has to be tremendous amount of research around competition. Which are the other people, companies that are offering this product? It could be formally, it could be informally in a market, but competition analysis around the product, features, and pricing needs to be addressed. Not just that, markets. Is this product addressing Indian market, European market, US market, EMEA? Which market is this product addressing? Your competition. And then based on that, once you've studied it, your positioning of a product is clear. Now, let's, for a moment, decide that you have thought of the problem. You have come with a proposed solution. You've decided that it creates significant value. and that it will fit. The market fit is there. How do you determine the market fit? Right? So there are some pundits out there who say that when the product is ripped out of your hands by eager customers and you cannot keep up with the demand for more, you have achieved the nirvana known as product market fit, right? So once you do that, how do you get product market fit? Now we've decided that yes, it's important, product market fit should be there. How do you actually get it? Let's talk about this one by one. We have already identified the underserved needs of our customer, right? And therefore, we have thought that this is a problem area. How do you determine your target customer? To determine your target customer, the first thing you need to do is market segmentation. What does market segmentation mean? Market segmentation means, for example, if I look at credentials, right? Who are the people that need the credentials? They would be students, alumni. Who is the one issuing? That would be university. And who would be the ones, let's say, who are verifying these degrees? So that would be the corporates or a background verification company. So we need to do market segmentation to say who is the buyer of my product, who is the user of my product, right? And what value it's offering each of them. So I've put an example of market segmentation for, let's say, this academic credential platform, right? We talked about credentials. So I've put in place market segmentation. When we talk about market segmentation, we need to figure out different kinds of things. Who is your end user? What application does this mean for the end user? What will it help him do? Who are your lead customers? Who are those first 2-3 customers that will adopt this? Yeah, what are your market characteristics, right? Which means when you talk about whoever is buying the product, right? What is the characteristic? So let's talk about universities. So characteristic of the universities are they're usually very conservative. Maybe technology is not a very strong suit, although they do have the IT divisions now. Acceptance of any product technology goes through a very rigorous vetting process. The talent required is not very high priced for my product, right? So these would be market characteristics for me. Who are the partners or players in the space? Are there any, let's say when I'm talking about credentials platform, is there any other player in the market who I can partner with, like a background verification agency or any other player who I can partner with and make it a bigger play? What is the size of the people? Like how many people can actually use this? And when I say use this, I mean paying customers who can use this. Who is your competition? What kind of platform are we offering? You know, so you have to actually segment, and for each market segment. So let's say for universities, for training institutes, for corporates, for students, for each of these, I have to list out this market segmentation. And once you do this market segmentation, you will have more clarity on who actually is looking at buying your product, right? Now, this is one part of what we are going to do. After market segment, you need to create a persona. What is a persona? Who is going to buy your product? Now, when we say who is going to buy your product, university is going to buy my product. But is it really the university, or is it that 1, 2, or 3 people from that university who are going to look at the product and buy it? So who are those people? We need to create a persona. So let's say here I've created persona of the person who's going to use the product. So who's going to use the product? A student will use it, a working professional will use it. Similarly, let's say a vice chancellor is the decision maker, or the director is a decision maker, or the principal is a decision maker in a college for this, right? So what are the demographics? What is their age, income, geography, education, marital status? You know, what do they think? What do they feel? Where do they hang out? Right? What are the, let's say, platforms, online platforms that they use? What are their priorities? Lot of this information creates a persona for you. And this is very important when you're doing your research. This is essentially your primary market research, right? Which we are going to come to next. So when you create your persona, you're zeroing down on who your target customers are. Once your target customers are defined, right? Your target customers are defined like this, that these are the people who I need to reach out to. After that, we are going to decide and create a market. So what is a market? Now here I have defined something called a beachhead market. What does that mean? A beachhead market essentially means the market that is easiest to access. Why do they call it that? They call it that because in olden times, when countries used to go to war, right? And if they wanted to capture a country or a city, they would come by boat to the shores, and they would capture that one shore, which is like almost an island. So from three sides they would attack and capture that fastest, and they would make a base there, and then from there they would attack the country or city. So similarly, you have to identify your beachhead market, which is the easiest to capture. It could be the university in your city, in your town. It could be someone that you know, right? But try to go with people that you don't know and that you can reach out and that they can get excited by your product. So that basically covers your target customers. Once you have defined your target customers, what next? You're going to go ahead and do something called primary market research. This is one of the most important things that you will do, and 95% of startups fail because they don't do primary market research. Now, the reason to do primary market research is the personas that you have made. You are actually going to create a survey for these personas to talk to them about the problem statement that you had here, that you had done over here. We have identified a clear problem, right? Now, because we have identified this problem, we are going to create a survey to ask our personas, is this really a problem? So you create a bunch of questions without giving a solution to say, this is what we believe is a problem, that you need digital certificates. Do you think that let's say the university can go online within this year? What are the problems the university will face if the government mandates digital certificates or whatever? So you create a whole bunch of questions for them. And then you reach out to 5 or 10 personas from each segment. So you've created multiple segments here. From each segment, you're going to reach out to these personas, different personas that you've created, and get them to fill this survey for you. Now, ideally, it is best if you can do one-on-one survey, because there are a lot of questions that come out. What you may think is a problem, is it really a problem for your consumer who's going to use your product? Once you have decided that, you reach out to these personas, you create that survey, you will actually get some market intelligence to endorse what you thought was a problem here. Is it really a problem? Or did you think that this was a problem and now it's not? So if it is not, then I guess your product that you thought would be really good, maybe time to not do it, right? And decide, okay, this is not going to work. Maybe I need to think of something else. Because this is the time when you stop. But if it validates your product and says, yes, this is a requirement, then go ahead and do secondary market research. Now, what does that mean? Secondary market research means, look at papers or any research or any statistics that may be there on that particular subject. If there is any research which is published abroad, or maybe something within your country. A lot of research companies do multiple amounts of research. Some are paid, some are free. Depending on how bad your desire is, you figure out some secondary market research. Once your secondary market research is completed, which means your primary and secondary, right? You've talked to your customers, determined their pain point. You've collected large enough data sample so that it provides meaningful feedback. And in this COVID world, if it is not possible to do that, maybe online surveys. But it's always better to then arrange Zoom calls. After that, you are going to go ahead and create a business model. After we define that, and now we've already defined our value proposition here. In the third point, we've determined that it creates significant value. So we've defined the value proposition. Now you need to go ahead and create a business model. What does business model mean? How will your product make money? That is the business model. Who is your paying customer? Which customer is going to pay you money? Now, let me give you examples of some business models. I'm sure you're familiar with Airbnb. It's an online marketplace that enables people to list and find and rent accommodations, right? So what is the business model of Airbnb? They let people like you and me get online. They don't own one single room. They have built their entire business model on the sharing economy, believing that homeowners who want to travel are willing to rent out their space for to strangers for money, and Airbnb takes a commission out of that transaction. So very simple business model, very clear about their business model, that our money comes from transactions that strangers make when they rent their home to another person. Alibaba. Alibaba is one of the largest online retail companies in the world, and yet it owns not one shred of inventory. So, like Amazon, Alibaba is a marketplace where people sell goods, right? And mostly Chinese sellers with buyers around the world. Now, the value of Alibaba lies in its software interface, not in the products. The products are offered by people like you and me. How do they make money? Alibaba decided we are only going to make money on transaction fees or advertisement revenue. What is their cost? Tech and team. That is their cost. So business model is very clearly defined as to where they are going to make their money from. Let's talk about Wikipedia. Now, Wikipedia is the largest free internet encyclopedia in the world, right? It helps improve your common knowledge. It helps users to edit almost any article that is accessible. It is the most popular reference work on the internet. Now, the company is able to, what is their business model? Their business model is that they're able to motivate a large community to participate in this project without offering any financial benefit, which means you and I can contribute to Wikipedia. We don't get any money out of it. But it's a community, they are able to motivate this community for online contribution of data. How do they make money? Believe it or not, Wikipedia makes money on community donations, which means people like you and me, when we use Wikipedia, we donate a certain amount. Now, what is their cost? Their cost is purely maintaining servers because they are not generating data. They are purely facilitating and motivating. So the business model is very clear. So like this, you need to define what your business model is. Where are you going to make your money? And what are your costs going to be? Let's talk about now measuring your product market fit. How do you measure? Okay, product market fit is there. How do you measure it? You measure it by something called TAM, total addressable market, right? Now, what is total addressable market? It is if your product went to market, what is the total potential for revenue? And that total potential for revenue across, let's say it can do India, Europe, and Australia. That's what my market is built for, my product. So what is the total potential revenue that it can address? That is your total addressable market. Now, so to do that, you're going to have to do some numbers. You have to decide what you're going to sell your product for, let's say service. if it's a service, or whether if it's a SaaS model, whether it's offering it as software as a service, or you're going to sell the OEM license. Is it a license model? Whatever it is, you need to decide what you're going to sell it for, or rather, what is the market willing to buy it for, and how big is the market? How many, let's for a moment again go back to the university example. How many universities in India there are which need a digital credentialing platform? That is the market need. And what would they be willing to pay for it, right? Which means how many degrees are issued by Indian universities annually? If all of those are issued on my platform, what could be my revenue? That is my total addressable market. I have also now got this sorted out. Once we have done this and we decide this works, here I'm assuming that you will go ahead and get funding for this project once you have decided all of this. After you do that, you specify a minimum viable product feature set. What does that mean? You decide that if I want to build this technology, what is the minimum feature set that I can build out for a demo, which is a prototype, right? So I build out a prototype for the market, and something that I can show, right? So you actually create a product. Select a single vertical for now. Let's assume for now I am just doing university and students, right? And I address that whole cycle and corporate. I address one single feature and I create out the minimum viable product. And that can be used for demos, that can be used for fundraising, that can be used to basically showcase what you have done. And after you do that, you're actually going to go back to your market. You're going to go back to your market, and the people, the persona, you remember the persona that we have gone back to? Yeah. You're going to go back to the universities, to the different personas that you spoke to, and do the demo. Now, the first thing that you had done with them was the survey, right? Where you actually asked them, is that a problem? Then they said, yes, it's a problem. Then you go back with this product and say, okay, you said this was a problem. I have now got a product to showcase, whether this problem is solved by this product. Now here, they will actually give you, let's say, feedback. They'll give you feedback on, yes, this product is okay, it covers all of the features I want. Or they'll say, no, this is not right. This is not covering what we need. It actually needs more. So a variety of feedback can come from your customers, right? And the question on whether they'll be willing to implement, because these are the people who will actually go ahead and buy your product, right? Because that's who you've created it for. So the product market fit that we talk about, I think this is your what you call eureka moment. When you take this prototype to your customer, and if that customer at that point is not excited or doesn't think, yeah, I mean, it's good, yeah, it's all right, like, then you have a problem. Then Hauser, you have a problem. Either our initial survey did not capture what was supposed to be captured, or maybe it's not that pressing a need, which maybe that was not understood in the PMR. So at this time, your prototype will determine whether you should put any more money in it to make it a product. And that essentially decides what your product market fit is. So this concludes your exercise of a product market fit, right? Your product PMR, which means after you have done your prototype, you actually go back to each of these customers and you talk to them about buying this product or adding a feature set or doing something that is currently not available or not part of your plan. So your roadmap has to be absolutely clear in this case. Now, I talked to you a little bit about the digital credential platform. Let's talk about pharmacy, right? What are the potential technology products that can happen in a pharmaceutical arena? Now, there are multiple products that our customers, have spoken of, or things that we have talked to our customers about. Let's talk about for a moment. Let me come back to the credentials. You see that as the last subject here, credential verification. Now, let's assume in a medical college, medical licenses are needed to practice, right? Those could be issued on a platform. Electronic health records, digitally connected ecosystem of all stakeholders. What does that mean? Every hospital may have a health record system, right? But connecting all of the ecosystem players, what does that mean? Let's look at it. So, I have put some problem statements, challenges, solutions for you to understand how we do it. So, let's assume for e health records, there are multiple industry challenges. Patient records, historical records are not available. Even as a consumer, when I want to go to a doctor, I can't find something, or it's not there, it's lost, or I'm not carrying it when I'm at the doctor's, right? Effective communication to all stakeholders, secure transportation of medical records and images. So, medical records of a consumer are supposed to be private, right? They're not to be shared without his consent. So, secure transportation of that. Regulatory compliances are there. Instant access needs to be there. Maintaining data protection and privacy. These are all industry challenges, right? These are all problem statements. So, what am I proposing? I'm proposing that we can create a platform which can bring all of these stakeholders together on one platform. Okay? Now, to bring everybody on one platform means what? Prescriptions, pharmacies, prescriptions, vaccination, lab records, medical images, clinical trials, doctors, pharmacies, patients, hospitals, and insurers and regulators. Everybody on one platform. How does that work? So I say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and create a system and bring all of the users on that one platform. And I go ahead and create a platform which has, I create a design where I say the healthcare service provider, the patient, the healthcare data user, which is, let's say, doctors, lab, radiologists, insurance, all of them are there, and the regulator for auditability. All of them are on this one platform. So I designed this system and I put it in place. Now, after I do this, I actually go ahead and create a whole PMR. I go ahead for my primary research, right? I go to the hospitals. Let's say I go to 10 hospitals and I ask them, if I create something like this, would you be interested? The hospital says, we already have our own system. Why should we do 2 times? Some hospital will say, yeah, we don't have, but it's too much effort. How will we put in the data? We'll have to digitize data. I go to radiologists or doctors and labs. Some will say, I'm already using Procto. Some will say, radiologists will say, I have some software that I'm already using. Right? Now, as a solution, this seems very ideal. How can a solution like this work in that case? Now, in this case, I believe that if a large hospital chain or a regulator mandates a platform like this from all healthcare service providers, in that case, something like this can really work. Right? So, me as a person, I have this idea. It's a superb idea. Is it possible for me to actually go ahead, although the idea is great, right? The idea is superb. But how and who can implement it? That's also an important thing to do. Although I do have a demo of this product and I'm going to show it shortly. One of the reasons I wanted to talk to you about it is that when we do have an idea, how to actually take it to market, which is called the go-to market, is a very important part of the strategy after the product market fit. Right? The market fit is there. Everyone says, yeah, great. But coming on board requires some amount of effort, some amount of decision making at the top level. So who is going to use it and who is the decision maker will also make an important decision for your product when you talk about the go to market strategy. Okay, so this is the healthcare platform that I showed you earlier. We actually went ahead and designed it. Okay, and we talked to the radiologists, the insurers, the regulators. Here, in many cases, you can see if you're creating a multiple stakeholder partner. Let's say products can be of different types, right? Suppose you're solving just one little problem of a hospital, or one little problem of a radiologist, or let's say one little problem of your regulator. So these technology solutions are independent and they can be independently, um, let's say, implemented without anybody else getting involved, right? You just go to the regulator or the hospital or the lab, talk to them, maybe 10 labs will implement it. But when you talk about integrated platforms, here the game changes. Integrated platforms need consortiums to build. They need multiple stakeholders to come together to hold hands and actually create something. Now, the value of these is tremendous. It is a game changer for the health or pharmaceutical industry. Um, how and when India will be ready is a question that I think needs to be answered. So, a lot of these thoughts and processes are going on in the technology community as far as building um, technology products for the health and pharmaceutical industry. Now, I earlier I spoke about one. I showed you, yeah, these are the potential, let's say, blockchain technology products that we're talking about, right? Now, for pharmaceutical industry, there's one use case that we have been kind of talking about a lot, which is the drug traceability and authentication. There's a lot of fraudulent drugs out there, medicines out there. How do you track and trace these all the way from the manufacturer to the consumer? Now, the reason I showed you the healthcare system is it is a platform play, right? Similarly, this drug traceability is a whole supply chain all the way to the consumer that needs to be done. So, drug traceability and authenticity, some manufacturers are putting some holograms or let's say barcodes, but eventually in the system, things can be changed. So, how do you actually address it? Now, as far as technology is concerned, there is a tech. One second, I'm trying to show you something. Yeah. So, this is the whole drug traceability, let's say, system that you can talk about. Right? It includes an entire ecosystem of the pharma manufacturer, your distributor, wholesaler, pharmacist, hospitals, insurance, regulators, doctors, and patients. What this does, if you are able to put it on blockchain, is it cannot change. Once a pharma manufacturer puts something on blockchain, it cannot change, right? It cannot be modified. And therefore, there is a lot of value in a platform like this. Who would implement it? Maybe the manufacturer would, or let's say the drug manufacturer is the best suited to implement it because he does not want counterfeiting of his drugs. So he would implement this system when he ships the boxes. He would actually go ahead and put them on blockchain, make a hash out of them, and then the whole process goes on all the way to the consumer. When the consumer buys it, they can actually scan it and take a look at actual manufacturer data as to where it has come from. Sometimes they're even geotagged. So there are a lot of solutions. Now, I'm just talking to you about different technology solutions that are available in the pharmaceutical sector. Now, out of the entire list that I showed you, right, we talk about the pharma inbound supply chain, vaccine distribution. Now, this was something that came out as a very important use case when in this whole COVID situation, right? So last year, Government of India actually commissioned IIT alumni to maybe get together and see if we can develop a vaccine distribution across the country, the supply chain, and then actually track it for citizens through a vaccine passport. What this means is, when these vaccines would have been available, they should have been distributed centrally, made sure that each of the centers have got what they need, including the temperature control, so that no vaccine goes spoiled. And as it goes through the entire supply chain, uh, you can transparently see the whole status of vaccine distribution across the country. Now, what does vaccine passport mean? That means every time a citizen gets the vaccine, right, they have something called a unique uh, DID, distributed identifier. Now, each person, like for us here in India, we have a Aadhaar number. Now, our DID could be associated with the Aadhaar number, and you get a thing linked with Aadhaar. Now, currently, that's happening, right? So today, if I put my Aadhaar number on the CoWIN website, it will show me that you have taken a vaccine or not. So it's sort of a vaccine passport. Now, but that is purely for COVID. Here we are talking about a vaccine passport, but that could also include all of the vaccines that we take through the lifetime. So essentially a vaccine passport. So when you travel abroad, a lot of these countries ask for the different vaccines you may have taken since childhood. They want to see that list if you go to African countries or if you go to any other country. So it is important that vaccine distribution and vaccine passport uh, are solutions within this domain that are something to be looked at. Drug traceability and authenticity, I spoke about. Clinical trial management, patient enrollment, trial data analysis and result. you know Now, these I'm talking to you about all blockchain technology products because that's the domain I'm in. Now, clinical trial management, there is so much that goes on within clinical trials. You want them to be pure, untouched, chaste, so that the data coming out of it we can trust, that nothing is fudged, nothing is changed, no data has been tampered. Therefore, we tell them you put it on blockchain, right? So, clinical trial management is something that is a very important piece of technology that can be brought in. Um, Drug certificates. So, issuance of these clinical trial drug certificates to say that this drug tested like this and this is the certificate for it. Now, these certificates then transparently can be verified by consumers. Medical device certificates. Now, what does this mean? Right? These are warranties for medical devices, let's say pacemakers or whatever. These warranties to be issued digitally on blockchain so that they can be verified at any time and they cannot be changed or modified. So you can trust that data entirely. Authentication of any shipping or regulatory documents associated with drugs that are shipped all the way to the pharmacy, right? There are pharmacy management programs, the pharmacy management technology that can be used. But if we are here, what I'm talking to you are mostly ecosystem plays, right? That if they come into place, then pharmacies get plugged into each of these systems as part of a small module, like where pharmacies can just download an application and work off of it, and all the pharma companies are actually uploading data to that. That would make life so much simpler, right? So going forward, the world that we see as far as technology products are concerned is going to be an integrated world, especially now because global lines are blurring, and we are seeing more and more integration of global supply chains happening. In the COVID times, we have seen our vaccines getting transported across countries, right? So similarly, pharmaceuticals also travel across countries. So these global supply chains need to be integrated into platforms like these. Traceability is a very important part of our pharmaceutical industry. And some of these products, I just wanted to bring to you that these are ideas, these are thoughts of possibilities that can be implemented in the pharma domain. So overall, I have spoken to you about technology product market fit. I have talked to you about technology products. There is just one demo of a product that we did that we thought was something that would fit well for the market. I've created the demo. It doesn't have a voice. It's just to show you how a prototype is made. When you decide that a product is good, the market fit is good, and then we create a prototype, right? What should a prototype entail? So you can create screens, showcase logins, what are the institutions that are going to be part of this demo, create some screens, show the whole flow of how this is going to um, demonstrate, different people who can log in with different access control, right? And what actions they can perform, right? Here, they are sharing medical records. Health records of a person is being shared with the doctor, right? So this demo showcases the actions that can be taken by different stakeholders of this system, who can log in, what actions they can do, for who they can do these actions. Here, the diagnostic record of Suresh Bagh is being shared by his doctor. The diagnostic lab is sending this record directly to the customer, and the customer can log in here and share it with his doctor. The doctor can actually go ahead and log in and maybe share it with another doctor for a second opinion, right? So much can be possible. So here in this demo, what we've done is just taken a small amount of features and showcased. This is called a POC, a proof of concept. In the technology world, a prototype, which is a proof of concept that this works and this is how it will function. It helps your customer visualize how a product would function, how a product would actually look and feel. And if I need to play with it, give them a demo access so that they can try and look and feel. So this is just to show you what a prototype of like a technology product would be, for you to take for your PMR when we do the product PMR. So we spoke about the product PMR. This is just to show you a demo on how the product PMR feels to a customer, right? So if you were my customer and I'm showing you this demo, I'm telling you everything that it does, you're able to visualize it, right? Earlier, we saw how the design looked on paper. What are the stakeholders? I saw that on paper. Here, I'm showing you a prototype as to how it actually works. So let me just go back to, yeah. So this is what I showed you earlier, right? As my design. Then we actually went and saw that how the entire ecosystem would look on paper, who would be participating, what actions can they perform, right? And then I showed you a demo. So the whole journey, I have tried to demonstrate the whole journey of a product market fit to you. So I'm going to go back to reiterate what we have done today. So we have actually gone ahead and understood a problem, created significant value that meets the customer's needs. We have created a business model, pricing model, gone ahead and done what the competition needs. Yeah, like understood what the competition is. We did market segmentation. We created personas. We defined a beachhead market. We created a primary research, which includes surveys, interviews. We did secondary market research. We defined a value proposition and business model, uh, identified the total addressable market, which is the total potential of a market. We specified your minimum viable product feature set, and then we created a demo, a prototype. After creating the prototype, we have gone back to the customer to show him the prototype and say, okay, this is what I created out of all the problems that you confirmed that you had in our survey. Now, Mr. Consumer, would you buy this product and at what price? After you have done all of this, you go back and actually design and define your timelines for developing this product. In the meantime, create a go to market strategy, talk to your investors on the funding requirements, right? And then you would go and talk about this product market fit to your financiers, who would then go ahead and maybe get as excited by you as your idea, and fund the project. And that's essentially how entrepreneurship works. And entrepreneur's life, I think, is the toughest job, in terms of the startups, no, have very small budgets, which means you are trying to uh, create a product, in small budgets, and market the product, and you have to decide, how narrow your focus is going to be. You have to deep dive into the industry that you're actually reaching out to. You have to establish yourself as an industry expert in a single domain, with a goal to stimulate a viral spread, right, of your product, and actually measuring that product, the average revenue per person that you're going to get, the total potential. And you're doing it all by yourself, especially when you're in entrepreneurship and you're creating a startup. You're pretty much working alone. Therefore, it's important that you identify one or two partners with varying strengths. So if you're technical, find somebody who has a good business and marketing background, right? Find somebody who can complement your technical strengths or is very well connected within the network, and create a team, because this is like a marriage. When you go ahead and think of entrepreneurship, or your students think of entrepreneurship and you're advising them, uh, you really need to create a winning team before you create a product. And that winning team can surpass multiple difficulties that can come when you're actually creating a product, or defining your entrepreneurial journey. And once you do find that product that fits your market, there are many things that you need to address, which are, let's call them myths, right? What are the product market fit myths? And some of the myths are that you cannot, that once you have found a product market fit, competition can't touch you. Or once you have found a product market fit, you can just sit back. And once a product market fit is defined, you don't ever need to go and rediscover this journey again after a few years. All of this is a lie. Once you have defined a product market fit, the one thing that you need to do is avoid complacency. Don't assume that you will always have a market fit, because people change, customers needs change continuously over time. Spotify is successful today, 10 other products like Spotify have come in the market. And you need to constantly reevaluate market conditions in order to continue meeting your customers' needs, in order to retain your customers, yeah, in order to make sure that you don't lose the customers that you have acquired with so much difficulty. You actually went through the whole process and acquired that customer. You definitely don't want to be losing those customers. So the entire entrepreneurial journey of product market fit is a make or a break. And I think the most difficult part of that journey is to find the product that is going to excite your customers, a product that's going to be the product. Now, you could be in the product that you are coming out with, could be a blue ocean or it could be in a red ocean. What does that mean? When you go to market with your product, right? Uh, you could be in a blue ocean, which means there is nobody out there, there is no competition. You are first to market. And the other is that you are in a red ocean, which means there is so much competition, and yet you have dared to bring a product out um, which means you really have to have something significantly different in your product where it already has so much competition. And the third option is where you have a purple market, which means it's not red, it's not blue, but there is some amount of that market which is not captured. Yet there are other players who could capture it, right? So once you have determined where you stand, you need to then decide your go to market strategy. Now, go to market strategy can have multiple, let's say, thoughts to it. What does that mean? What does a go to market strategy mean? That is essentially, the plan or the process that you follow to take this product to your market. You're unveiling a new product. So your PMR, which is your primary research market that you went to, is there. Now you want to go ahead and decide, and you say that, okay, I'm ready for the entire Indian market. So you need a strategy. You need to decide what do you need to do. Now, there are four components for a go to market. You've already done the product market fit, you've already done the target audience, and you've already done competition. What you now need to do is demand and distribution, right? So, you now, for the go to market, you will need to study demand, which means you've already studied who offers what you're launching, right? How is the demand for it, which means uh, can you generate more demand by advertising or by creating awareness, right? So demand generation is something that you're going to do as part of your go to market strategy. And you are going to do distribution. Now, what does that mean? You would probably have to employ a sales force to in every part of the country or different cities that you identify, and maybe tie up with channel partners who are selling software products, and then take this whole product to market where you have already decided, let's say, a pricing strategy, you created a brochure, and now you move to distribution. Your go to market strategy has covered the first three things, which is your product market fit, your target audience, how much they're willing to pay, your competition, demand generation, and distribution. So that covers your go to market strategy. And as part of creating a technology product, this essentially, well, not completes, but this is the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey. This is where you actually begin. This is where you are actually now an entrepreneur. Because before you did all this, you were purely a dreamer. And for realizing dreams, the effort that goes into a very structured process is important. Now that you have come to this, the whole story changes from entrepreneurship to leadership. The whole story changes from entrepreneurship to leadership is because right now, all this while you were working with a small team. When you go into distribution, right, you're starting to hire people, you're starting to engage partners. You are actually going to become a leader, right, within your company. Lot of research, planning, deep thought on how you're going to um, you know build people, build your organization. And one of the most important things that gets a person through an entrepreneurial journey is mentorship. And it's very important that a entrepreneur surround himself with mentors. One, two, three. Somebody that you can go back to for guidance, support, sometimes just motivation, because the journey of an entrepreneur is very lonely, and you need to have that mentor, because it mentors allow you to take quantum leaps. They help you avoid mistakes, they help you avoid pitfalls that could cost you your future. You can make a rash decision sometimes, when you're in a corner and you need to make a decision and you're not able to think straight. You could end up actually making a decision that could kill your entrepreneurial journey. So mentors make a big difference, and I think that you as teachers can influence your students in such a strong way. And mentors have to be all kinds. You need mentors from the industry that are already part of that industry. You need mentors who are, entrepreneurs, maybe not from your industry, but they understand business. Financial mentors who understand finances, right? Cash flows are a very important part of an entrepreneurial journey. And once you do decide that, you know, I want to do entrepreneurship, you need to commit, because it's a very long and I think a very tedious journey being an entrepreneur. And there are multiple roles that you're playing, multiple um, things that you're doing. Because as part of a small startup, initially, when you do start your entrepreneurial journey, you're doing everything, right? Like in a family, your mom, dad, grandfather, everything. So it is very important. Mentors play uh, a crucial role in entrepreneurs. So my own journey, I think, has been, and I'd like to share a little bit of that with you. I started my journey as, I come from a very conservative Marwadi family background, and we were not really raised to ever do business, right? We were supposed to get married and have children and whatever. But luckily, like things would have it, I got an opportunity to work before I even got married. I started working with IBM, I mean Zensar, and then IBM. And then, I got married, went abroad, I did my master's, and eventually ended up working with a pharmaceutical company. So I worked with Aventis Pharmaceuticals, I worked with Cardinal Health in the US, and I was heading their IT divisions there. And the opportunity to work really showed me what is it that I want to do in life. So after about 10 years in the US, we decided to come back to India. And my father had a real estate company. I came back to set up an IT company, but as will would have it, I got into my father's business of real estate, and I did 10 years of real estate. And completely from scratch. I learned on the job, very difficult journey. And you can imagine fathers sometimes are not the best teachers. So it's even harder to work under your father or with your father, rather. Extremely difficult. But I think it was the most productive journey because uh, he had me start from scratch. I had to do everything that the junior most person did to the leadership level. And because I did that, I was able to guide the team better. We were able to perform better. And we went from, a 7 people company to a 200 people company, and it worked beautifully. But my heart was always in tech. And so I came back to tech after 10 years of real estate, and I invested in a company. Snapper is one of the companies I'm invested in. I've also invested in other companies as well. But and I then started at the helm of Snapper Future Tech as the CEO. And the whole journey of entrepreneurship has been, for me, a journey that is only possible because of my mentors, and I've had many. I've been very fortunate to have, different mentors from the industry, outside the industry, who I've gone to from time to time. Every time that I've felt maybe that my creative thought process is not working as well, or my product idea needs some validation. I need a sounding board to talk to somebody. And as faculty, you can be that person for so many of your students who are starting off their entrepreneurial journey. So it's important to understand the pains or the you know tribulations that entrepreneurs go through, young entrepreneurs especially. At my age, obviously I've seen the world a little more than young students are looking at. But India is a land of startups, India is a land of entrepreneurs, right? We at heart, we can do it. And therefore, your students dream or will dream of maybe being entrepreneurs. And I think that it's very fortunate that you get to mold these minds and you get to carve these minds to actually go in the direction of business, because India has immense talent. And to be able to harness that talent well, to create that kind of leadership within India is amazing. And when they don't find it here, when these students don't find that here, they go abroad. We lose so much talent of ours to to the western markets, whereas we do have a lot in terms of incubation centers, or in terms of mentors that are available to guide startups. I think you already, as part of your FDP, have one session on incubation centers. They play a very, very important role in the entrepreneurial journey. And one of the most important things that are currently supporting startups are incubation centers. So a very, I think, strong part of the whole process of creating a startup and a product of your own. So, I mean, this was just a little bit of what I wanted to share with you in terms of, the whole product market fit. I hope that this has been valuable for you. My presentation is done. If there are any questions on any of the subject that I have covered, I'm happy to take that from you. My name is Darshana Parmarjain. I'm the CEO of Snapper Future Tech. You can find me on LinkedIn, on Facebook. Feel free to reach out to me if you need anything at all. Roshali ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a thought-provoking speech. You have very nicely explained about what is blockchain, product markets research. Also, you have explained about the demo of healthcare. Okay, so definitely, I'm sure about that. All delegates will get or benefit greatly from such a nice talk. Once again, thank you so much, madam, for your valuable time for this section. Thank you, madam.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Bye bye. Now, moving to next session, let me introduce our second speaker, Dr. Vaishali Jadhav, HOD in Diploma of Pharmacy at KGRDCP RI and Cursor. Madam have 10-year academic experience and 5 years industrial experience, from which she have 2.5 experience of the writing. Then she has the many publication, that is national and international publications. Also, she has attended more than 50 national and international seminars as well as conferences. All this about the short introduction about the Vaishali madam. With this short introduction, may I request to Vaishali madam to start the session.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vrishali madam, for introducing me.
Yes. Thank you.
Just give me a second, I will share my slide.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Madam, is it visible?
Yeah, ma'am, it is visible.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes.
Can you see the full view?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So, very good morning to all the participants. Today I have selected the topic research and publication ethics. Um, and the reason behind selecting this topic, research and publication ethics, was because before joining teaching, I had worked with Zero Plain Farm as a publication writer for 3 years. So I have gone through all these guidelines myself. I have read them. I have learned to use them. So that is the reason I have selected this topic. So let us start. First of all, let us see what is ethics. Definition is that it is generally defined as set of principles that distinguish between acceptable and unacceptable behavior of or a way of conducting a task. Now, being a faculty, each and every one of us know that how important research is for all of us, as well as publication of the research. And when this research and publication comes, along with that comes the ethics. And any work, whatever you do, doing it ethically is the right way of performing it. And what is the importance of ethical codes? Let us see. Ethical codes, they not only help maintain the scientific integrity, but also safeguard the primary aim of conducting the research and to promote knowledge and truth. Now, there are some ethical codes which are formed by the different organizations, universities, and out of which the Helsinki is one of the ethical code which is generally used in order to, and which is generally followed in the research work. So this ethical codes, they promote the trust, respect, objectivity in the collaborative work environment by avoiding the conflicts related to the authorship. These guidelines, they help us to maintain the safety and interest of the human subjects and ensure the appropriate care of animal subjects in a clinical or laboratory setting. And very important is that the researcher's accountability for the quality and outcome of the research. It directly helps the public health and interest. Being a pharmacist, we all take the pharmacy oath. But when it comes to work, we always forgot that what both we have taken. So it is very important that we should follow this ethical codes during our work. Next is ethical requirements for researchers. Now, during performing any work, it is very important that even though these words would be we would be listening in our day-to-day life, but its implementation is equally important. That is integrity, honesty, objectivity, competence, carefulness. When we do our research work, it is very important that we do it sincerely, we do it honestly, as well as we should have a clear objective in our mind while doing any research. We should be careful while using the facilities of our organization, that what we are doing is right. Then we should have an openness, there should be a transparency in what we are doing. Of course, the confidentiality should always be there when you are doing any kind of research, but along with that, whenever or wherever the transparency is required, it should be there. As well as legality. Whatever you are doing in a research, it should be legal. There should be no misconduct done by the researcher. Then respect for intellectual property. You should follow the intellectual property guidelines. You should patent your work. When you are doing preclinical trials, you should take care of the animals. Unnecessary, undue use of the animals shouldn't be there. Confidentiality, as I said, is very important. Non-discrimination, responsible publication, responsible mentoring, social responsibility. So remember, as a researcher, along with our teaching, it is our responsibility that we do our work with our complete dedication and sincerity. Now, every one of us know that in the research, we do preclinical trials and clinical trials. And there are certain guidelines when you go for the publication, when you go for the research. And these guidelines are formed by the different organization, government, and they are like, now first of all, we will see the for clinical trials, and we know that clinical trials, they are highly scrutinized and regulated because we involve the human beings. So that's why the guidelines are very stringent here. And some of the guidelines I have given here, like Consort, Stroke, Prisma. And these guidelines, they help us to study to design your study. Okay, that is for designing, conducting, and reporting the interventional and observational studies. Now, mostly the clinical trials, if you all observe, they are of two types: interventional and observational. So that's why these three guidelines are strictly followed by the people who are working on the studies. Then a resource on research health called Enhancing the Quality and Transparency of Health Research, Equator. This is also one of the very important site. You will get all important information. That is, if you will go to the website of the Equator and if you try to find out that if you have any problem or if you have any query in your study design, here all your problems will be resolved. So this is also Equator, one of the very important guidelines. And if you check the checklist of all these guidelines, you will understand that what important points are there while doing the clinical trials. Now here again, for different types of studies, they have given the guidelines. So just I will read through them. That is for randomized trials, consort is there, observational, strobe, systematic reviews, prisma, case reports, care guideline is there, quantitative research, SRQR, that is standards of reporting qualitative research, then COREQ, quality improvement studies, QUARE, economic evaluation, chairs, even for study protocols and clinical practice guidelines, also agree guideline is there. Okay, now if any person is working in a medical writing and specifically if he's in a publication writing, he should be aware of all these guidelines. Next, coming to the preclinical trials. In preclinical trials, also it is very important that you take care of the animals, and you know that what is the importance of preclinical trials. Nowadays, whatever vaccines, drugs, the first study what we go for are the preclinical. And for this also, an institutional animal care and use committee, that is IACUC. This is one of the guidelines which are followed, and the work committee or the committee, its evaluation, it starts from the evaluation of the protocols. Then there is one very important guideline for the preclinical trial, and that is ARRIVE. That is Animal Research Reporting of In Vivo Experiments. If you will see this ARRIVE guideline, there are in the checklist you will see there are 10 points which you have to follow and abide to these guidelines while doing the preclinical trials. Now, in this slide, I just want to tell you three things. That is, one is, while doing the preclinical trials, one should always avoid and use unnecessarily animals. If it is possible that the study can be done with the by using the different models, or you can use the latest science technologies, and if the study can be done, so it is always appreciated and also motivated. So instead of animal, it is always recommended to go for the different models, as well as the number of animals which you are using the preclinical trial should be minimum. Then the methods which you are using, they should be such that the animals will not suffer, and it will improve their welfare. Then after that, we will see what is conflict of interest. Now, dear participants, whenever we publish our paper, this is one of the words which will come across, you all will come across. What is conflict of interest? So the changing dynamics of research environment and collaboration can often give rise to conflicts of interest and commitments obligations. The research, everyone knows that it is not a one-day game. It is, some can go for years and some can go for months. And in this, there are various changes in the collaborations, and also in the commitments and obligations. It can happen that some person has started the research with one institute and he will end up with joining the other institute. So what in that case? Then one should maintain the transparency in research and publication by both authors and publishers. So transparency of your data by submitting it to the publishers is very important. Now, before going for the conflict of interest in detail, let us try to understand the author's responsibilities. It is very important for the author to disclose all interests so that the stakeholders are aware and can take the required steps. Then monitor the research and research results for transparency and integrity. Remove the person in question from important processes such as data interpretation or review process. Now, it is the responsibility of the main corresponding author to see that whoever has given his hard work or whoever has done the work, accordingly, the importance has to be given to that person. So he has to monitor the research and as well as he has to keep the transparency and integrity along with it. Then, coming to the conflict of interest, it can arise. Now, when the conflict of interest arises generally, one example already I gave, and these are the other two. That is, if any researcher who is the heading the research of a product and he is also a visiting consultant at the parent company, then the conflict of interest, it can also arise in second case when an author, researcher, editor or a peer reviewer has a relationship, personal or financial, that can directly or indirectly affect in making decision or influence his actions. So it is very important that if any conflict of interest is there, that should be mentioned while submitting your paper, your manuscript to the journal. So it is very important to keep the transparency. It is not that if you are having any relationship or if you are having any contact with the editor, with the publisher, and with the peer reviewer, it doesn't mean that you cannot publish your paper in that journal. But the important thing is that you should mention it when you are filling your conflict of interest or when you are sending it to the journal. So, other examples of the conflict of interests are financial relationship, personal relationship, intellectual beliefs, academic competition. So, such situations, because of all these reasons, it can happen that an author he can be put in such a situation which can be unethical. Therefore, it is important that all the stakeholders, that is who or whoever are involved in the research, they should include the authors, editors, and reviewers. They should maintain the transparency and disclose all potential or actual conflict of the interest to the journal. Now here, just again 3 points I would emphasize here on this slide. That is, if the author he has received the funds or services from any organization or from any government funding agency, so he should disclose that as a potential conflict of interest. That is, if you have got the funds or if you have got the grants from any organization, from any government funding agency, that should be written in the conflict of interest. Then next is the financial interest gains. That is, if having any financial relationship with the government agency, foundation, commercial sponsor, academic institution, so even that should be disclosed at the time of writing the conflict of interest. Then intellectual property, that is, if any you have planned and pending or any issued patents relevant to the work are there, so that also has to be disclosed. And any other kind of relationship, like with the reader of the manuscript, can potentially pursue and it can influence the ideas work presented in your work. Then managing research data. Now, all of us know that when we are doing research, right from the literature survey up to its publication, there are n number of things we go through the cycle. And it is very important that whatever data you're having, its preservation, that is its ownership, data collection, data storage, data sharing, all these points are very important for the author to follow time to time. So the group members whoever are involved in handling of the data, very important is that they should maintain the privacy and confidentiality of the data while recording on hard copy of the electronic evidence until the data is published. Now coming to the publication part, when we go for the publication, this is the process where in the slide where you can see how the peer review process occurs. That is, first of all, the study is conducted, research is there conducted, and then the study is communicated to the journal. Then the editor is the first person who will go through your journal, through your manuscript, and if he will check for all your language and other things, whether the paper is written properly by following all the guidelines as per the journal. And further, if it passes at the editor level, then your article is further sent to the reviewers for the peer review. Then the peer reviewers, they will study. Now the reviewers can be 2, they can be 3, they can be 6, and these reviewers, they will review your paper and then they will give the feedback to the editor. Then the editor will communicate back to you, giving you the corrections, and if that corrections are done by the person as per the requirement, then the paper is published. If the article finally meets the editorial and peer standards, it is finally published. So this is the process which is followed by the journals for publishing your data. Now let us see authorship. Who should be the author of the paper? Now, in organizations and in many institutes, we find that the person who does the research is the one, and in the authors whose names are written, there are many people. Even though they have not contributed significantly in writing the paper as well as in research work, their name is written in the authorship, or they are given the authorship, which is actually unethical. Why unethical? Here are some of the guidelines which are given by ICMGE. And what does ICMGE say? That these are the main 4 points. If this main 4 points the person has followed, only then he will be given the authorship of the paper. So let us see what are they. Made substantial contribution to the design and conception of the study, data collection, analysis, and interpretation. So the person is involved in the design, in the study, in the data collection, in the analysis, in the interpretation of the data. Then he has drafted and revised the intellectual content, the intellectual output. Also, he has approved the final version of the manuscripts for publication. Now everyone knows that when I write one single draft, that is not my final draft which I'm going to publish. At least 3 to 4 drafts we write and we go for before going for the final and complete draft. So it is required that the author, each and every author, he should be correcting each and every draft properly. He should give his remarks and his contribution should be there in each and every draft. Then he should agree to be accountable for the research work, ensuring that queries related to accuracy or integrity of the research. So these are the main points, 4 points as per ICMG. Only after following these 4 points, the authorship should be given. Now, there are different types of authorship issues. What are the different types of misconducts we come across that authorship? So there are three types. One is guest authorship, gift authorship, and ghost authorship. So what do you mean by guest authorship? This is that the author hasn't contributed to the research or writing, but his or her credentials can increase the credibility of the published work. Now we see that if any person is very famous in his work or in his area of research, and maybe his name is known to most of the journals and he's famous in the research society, I can say. So by putting his name, by including his name, it can happen that the journal can accept the paper. So that is the guest authorship. Then gift authorship is the author may have an association with the research or the manuscript but does not qualify the four criteria defined by the ICMG. That is, this person, that is, he have the association with the research, means he has done the research work, but after that he has not corrected the draft, he has not seen the draft, he has not contributed in the writing, but then also he will not qualify for the authorship. And last is the ghost authorship. There is the author should have been recognized as the author according to the ICMJ guidelines, but is excluded from the list. Now, what do you mean by ghost? That is, the author, he has done or he is qualifying as per the ICMG guidelines. He has worked in the lab as well as he has done the corrections, he was involved in the writing, all the 4 points he is qualifying. But then also his name is not in the authorship. So this is also one of the unethical practice, and this can be because of the conflicts between the people who are working together in the team, and this is called as the ghost authorship. Next is, let us see what is plagiarism. Everyone has heard this name, plagiarism. And if we want to define it, we can say that unethical practice of using someone else's work, ideas, data, concept, words, methods, images. See, even image, graph. We very easily we think that from any paper, from any publication, if I take an image, or if I copy a table, or if I copy a diagram, what is wrong in that? But that is also a plagiarism. And without proper acknowledge and presenting them as their own. This is very important. That is, if you are taking any image, if you are taking any diagram from that journal, it is very important that you contact or consult that person, that author, and take a proper permission from that person in a written. You should have a written document for that. If you are having that, you can take that image or certain diagram from that publication, from that journal which you want to take. But there is a proper procedure. You have to inform that person and do the documentation for that. Then again, coming to the authorship part, apart from that, the corresponding author communicates with the journal during manuscript submission, peer review, publishing. See, now this is very important. Being a corresponding author, it is your highest responsibility as compared to our other authors, that you should be involved in the work right from the literature survey up to research, up to publication, up to corrections. So all these things you should be there even during the peer review, during the publishing. Okay, so one should ensure that all the documentation requirements related to ethics committee, approvals, authorship, conflict of interest, clinical trial registration, all these things are met. Now you would be aware that for the clinical trials, whatever study is ongoing or whatever is completed, there is a repository of government where you can see all the clinical trials. That is clinicaltrials.gov. If you'll go to this site, you can find any study, that is any clinical trial of any drug. Okay, all would be there. That is, without that registration, you cannot further approve your protocol, or further you cannot go for the study as well as for the publication. So all this registration is required during the publication also. That the contributors, they usually help in the acquisition of funding, supervising research group, providing administrative support, assisting in technical writing, editing, proofreading. So even there can be some contributors, even though they are not in research and even though they are not in corrections and all at that part. But if they have done some administrative, they have given you some administrative support, or they have supervised the research groups, they have helped in the writing, technical writing part, editing, proofreading, so their name can be acknowledged. So there is one column which we write in the acknowledgement at the end of the paper of the publication. There you can mention their name. Now let us see the types of plagiarism. Types are complete plagiarism, source-based plagiarism, verbatim plagiarism, self-paraphrasing, patchwork plagiarism. The complete plagiarism means word to word, that complete work you are copying for of some other person and you are showing it as your own work. So that is the complete plagiarism. Then second is the source-based plagiarism. That is, you're taking the work, you're taking some lines or you're taking some work of that other person and you're not citing it. Okay, proper citation of that person is not given or wrong citation is given. So that is also, if wrong citation is given, it is a source-based plagiarism. Then verbatim plagiarism is that word to word, each and everything is copied from the other journal as it is. So that is the verbatim plagiarism. And self-plagiarism means your own work which is already published in the earlier journal. That same work again you are publishing it a second time and showing it as a new one. So even that is not allowed and you can be punished for that as it is a self-plagiarism. The next is paraphrasing plagiarism. That is, you're copying the results of some other person, you're paraphrasing it, you're changing its wordings and showing that it is my own work. So that is also not allowed. And patchwork plagiarism means what is done is one line or two lines of my own work, then after that 3-4 lines of other person. So in between, if I'm trying to fit others work or others information as it is, so that is called as the patchwork plagiarism. So remember, the plagiarism, it can lead to retraction of the published work and loss of academic position or jobs. So it is a very serious misconduct which, being a faculty member, you shouldn't perform it at any case. So these are some important points, that is, which should be followed while taking the data from some other place. Okay, that is quoting. That is when using word to word verbatim, that is text from any other source. So if in any case you want to take some lines, few lines, or it is that you cannot make certain changes, like some methods are there, you cannot change that methods, you have to write as it is. But then it is very important that you cite the source. If you are not citing the source, then it would be wrong. And summarizing, that is when you are summarizing your own words to convey the main message. The original work is in an abridged form. So make sure to cite the original source. So it is very important that if you're summarizing in your own words, and that is mostly what we do is in discussion. We compare our study results with the results or the discussion, mainly results of the other journals. So it is very important that you cite the reference over there, that is with whom you are comparing your work. Then paraphrasing. If you are paraphrasing the original work, again it is important Let's cite the original work so you can paraphrase it. And then common knowledge like universal truths, facts, as I said, the methods cannot be changed. They has to be as it is. But then again, the very important thing is to cite it properly. The next is the publication ethics. Now, in publication ethics, it is very important that what the author should follow and what he shouldn't do. That is do and don'ts. So, one is that the author he should disclose whether the same research has been published before or is being considered for publication elsewhere. Now, it very happens many times that some work we publish it in one paper and then its continuation we publish it in the other paper, so it can be a continuation of that work, but then you have to cite it or you have to inform it to the journal. Then duplicate publications and simultaneous submissions. This is a very serious misconduct. Duplicate publication means same research work, research paper, you are submitting it to two different journals. It is not allowed. And simultaneous submissions means at the same time you're trying that I will send to 5 different papers and let us see that who will accept the paper. No, this is not allowed. If you have to send the paper one at a time, that is if you are sending it to one journal and if you are not getting your paper is not accepted by that journal, then you can send it to the other journal. At a time you cannot do the simultaneous submissions. Then third is, in biomedical research, authors present same data with different analysis or subgroups. In that case, authors should disclose the original source of data and previous publications when making a submission. So it is very important that in a study, you will see that there are different subgroups are there. And as the subgroups, of course, the results will vary and the data would be very large. Sometimes in many cases, that is, you cannot publish it in one single journal. So in that case, you should disclose this to the journal that which is the original source of data. Then next, again, publication ethics are simultaneous submissions and duplicate publications, which I already told you. Then what are the unethical publishing practice? Now, it happens many times. The authors, they don't have any intention to do any unethical practice, but they are not having the right knowledge of publication. Because of that, the misconducts happen. So for that, one should know what are the unethical practices. That is, there is one of the very important guideline, that is COPE, Committee on Publication Ethics. So it has given the guidelines for the journal editors, and in that guidelines, it is very important for any publisher to study or to know the COPE guidelines. So what does that guideline say? Let us see. Do not submit the same paper to different journals. Then maintain the transparency during submission and peer review process on previously published work. Then if you have published in any conferences, any poster presentations are being done or preprint repository, if anything of this is there, in any conference also if you have submitted any poster, so it should be disclosed to the journals. Then check with the publisher about translating and publishing the work again. Disclose already published or translated versions of the submitted manuscripts. And last is avoid dividing your work into multiple publications. So there is one word which is used for multiple publications, that is the salami slicing. That is, many people, they have the habit that in order to make many publications, single work, they will be dividing into multiple publications. So this is also one of the unethical practice. Then journals may allow secondary publications in certain cases. So yes, now you would be thinking that how come this? If I'm saying that same work, you cannot publish it again. But then there is always certain cases where it is allowed, and where That is, authors, they have got approvals from the editor of both the journals to republish it. Okay, that is, you have to take the proper permission from the journal. Now, when does this happens? When the secondary publication of that same work happens. It happens that if after publication you find that there is some error found in the study, or if that study is done again and some additions or very important additions which has to be done in the paper are required, so in that case then you can request to the journal editor and take a proper permission from them. If they allow, then it can happen that they will allow you for the secondary publication. And remember, this happens with the mini papers. The next is that the editors have agreed on the publication interval between the primary and secondary publication. So the editors, they should be aware of the publication, that is, any primary study is there, secondary study is there, and if interval has to be maintained in that, then the editors, they should be agreed with it that the secondary publication refers to the data and interpretation of the primary publication. That is, if any primary study is there which you have published, so of course you have to cite it and then publish it. Then again, about the secondary publication, it should inform the readers that primary publication has been published previously by citing it, and the title should indicate that it is a secondary publication. So it is very important that the person who is reading it, he should understand that this is the secondary publication and already a primary was there which was published. Then research misconduct. It is defined as the research misconduct as fabrication, falsification, plagiarism in designing, conducting, or reviewing research, or in reporting the finding of the research. So all this will come under the misconduct. That is, any wrong study design is there, or during conducting the research, some misconduct has been done during reviewing the research or reporting of the research findings. So all this will come under the misconduct. So let us see the falsification and fabrication. Falsification means misrepresentation of the research by changing data or results, or by tampering with equipment, research methods, or materials. That is, any wrong data or wrong results are published. So that is falsification. And fabrication means reporting false or made up data. Means you're changing the data, you're making some minor changes in that or the research output, and then you're fabricating it and then you're showing it. And plagiarism, we already have seen that it is the ideas or words which we are taking or we are stealing of the other person. Then next is the research reproducibility. Now remember, whenever any research is done, it is very important that the reproducibility for that should be there. That is, for that, it is required that the experimental protocols which you are submitting, they should be detailed, they should be easy to understand, and they should be easily implemented if anyone want to do that study again. Then you have to share your research outputs in an open access repository to make them accessible. So as I told that, clinicaltrials.gov, this is one of the repository for the clinical trials where you can share or you can go there and you can see how that study is being done. Then perform experiments in duplicates, triplicates to increase the robustness of your findings. So this is also very important that the reproducibility should be there. The robustness of your method should be there. Then refrain from data fabrication and manipulation. So no data has to be manipulated when you're submitting it, when you're publishing it. And now very important point which many people while publishing are not aware, that even copying the image or image manipulation is also one of the misconduct. It should be avoided by the person who is doing it. That is, what are the do's and don'ts? Consider your image as data. Then retain original copy of images. Make simple. That is, if any image you want to put in a journal, it is very important that you make up your own original copy. Then make a simple adjustment when modifying the images. If you are modifying the image, take the help of the graphic designer and do it properly. Then crop within acceptable standards and limits. That is, if you are modifying any image, always you should follow the standards and limits of that. Collect the image data that needs to be compared under same condition. Change the size of the images carefully. It is very important that the images should be such that they should be properly visible to the person who is reading it. Okay, and of course, without the standards, guidelines which are given by the journals, if you are not following that, the journal is not going to accept it. So the clarity of that image is very, very important. Then exercise caution when changing magnification or resolution of the image is very important. Make intensity measurements on raw data calibrated to an accepted standards. It is very important that you label the image properly. Then you put the proper information around the image. And what are the don'ts now? Let us see. That is, clone an object on your image. That is, if you're taking the object or any image from other and then you're cloning it on your own, then you're manipulating, modifying the specific area of the images to highlight or alter the background. See, this is also wrong. Use filters in software, especially on biological images. So you're trying to manipulate the results. If it is done, even this is also a misconduct. Crop such that the inference of the remaining image changes. Means the result, what you're seeing from that image, maybe some histopathology, these images are there. And in that, if you're changing, making some changes, so it will lead to the changes of the inferences or conclusion what the person researcher is withdrawing. So it is wrong. Alter brightness or contrast to fade an object or clear the background. This is also not allowed as per the paper journal guidelines. Then make color changes that alter the inference again. Resize image that alters aspect ratio, resulting in change in boundary shape. So all these things, whenever you are making any change in image, it is required to see that the inference of that whatever we are withdrawing from that image, it shouldn't change. And similar thing, it applies to the graphs, to the tables. Don't copy them from the others' paper as it is. Make your own. And at last, I would like to conclude here and say that it is very important for us to do the research. It is our duty as a faculty member to see that we ourselves should follow the guidelines, as well as we should always follow, or we should do our work ethically in by following all the guidelines and limitations. And as a teacher, whatever we do, whatever thoughts or thinkings or way of working we have, it is somewhat implemented or percolated in our students also. So it is our responsibility that we should do our work sincerely and honestly and publish it by following all the guidelines given by the journal. And for that, it is very important that we should have a good knowledge about the publication. We should understand the guidelines what are there for the publication. And nowadays it is also seen that number of papers has become very important if you want to go for the higher post or if you want to apply for the grants. But it is my request to the people who are sitting at this higher post and on this higher chairs that instead of seeing the number of papers, quantity of papers, always see the quality of papers which are published and which journals they are published. It is more important than publishing it in any or in an easy paper, I would say. So I would like to conclude here and say thank you to all the participants for patiently listening me and understanding the publication and research ethics, rules and regulations. And even I would like to say thank you to our principal sir, Dr. Mohan Kare, and to our management for giving me opportunity to present my talk here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vaishali madam. You are very nicely explain about what are the ethical codes, then responsibilities of author, plagiarism and its types. Once again, thank you so much for this informative session. Thank you, madam. Now, with this session, I conclude morning session here. Again, we will meet at afternoon with brainstorming session sharp at 2 p.m. Till then, goodbye everyone. Have a good day.